So welcome. I'm tempted to almost say good morning, but it's already midday, of course. Welcome to CTM 218, day number 6, actually, already. And yeah, we're very happy to have a lot of guests from China here today with us. And we are curious to hear about the sounds of China's underground. This panel is hosted together with our media partner, the Quietus, online magazine you might probably know. They are a partner of the festival since many years now. And yeah, the panel is hosted by Mollie Zhang, who is also a writer for the Quietus, but she's also an artist and a musician. And she also has a wonderful article here in the festival magazine, which I can of course only recommend to get. You can get it at the info counter. There's a lot of texts, essays, interviews that are contextualizing what happens at the festival. I think it's a good read for after the festival, of course. Yeah, so maybe shortly to say that all of the artists, of course, perform at the festival. So tonight at Berghain you have the chance to listen to Jason Hou and also to Hyph11e, and then on the final night of the festival on Sunday we can have a chance to listen to gGOOOOSE and to Sansan 33. Okay, Mollie, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, cool. So thanks for the introduction and for having me today. I'm really excited to be here with all of these wonderful artists. I guess China's not so well known for its electronic music or experimental music output, but especially at the hands of a lot of exciting artists like our participants today. There's been a lot going on in recent years, so I'm really looking forward to chatting to them about it. So I'll quickly introduce everybody today. This is Han, or Goose. He's a member of the electronica outfit gGOOOOSE. He's interested in generative sound and image, modular synthesis, and more. And his output is quite wide-ranging. It spans some self-released experiments, and then he also released the record They via D-Force Records Beijing recently. And then this is Sansan, who's also based in Shanghai. She's also part of gGOOOOSE. And together they founded this series of events in Shanghai called the Centaurs, which is a series of events that promote experimental electronic music in Shanghai. They host workshops in music production, modular synthesis, DIY software, hardware, instruments, and so on. Next up is Hyph11e, who's affiliated with Shanghai's subcults and Genome 666 MVP, labels and collectives. Her music has been described as like the epitome of the Shanghai sound by AQ&V, and she released her debut EP via Subcults this past November. And Vanishing Cinema features remixes from Kid Antoine, Mesh, and SchwuZ as well. And last but not least, we've got Jason Hou, who is a Beijing-based artist affiliated with Do Hits and Second Sense Audio. His work presents a kind of new species of dance music, fusing sounds of traditional China with newer club sounds, and he's also remixed and experimented a lot with Peking opera. So yeah, that's a brief introduction to the artists we've got here today. So to start off, I think we're kind of aware of not wanting to play into kind of westernized ideas of what China's art scene is like. So do you want to maybe start off telling us a bit about what it's like to be an artist in Shanghai and Beijing, what the kind of atmosphere is like, what nights are like there. Maybe just one by one go through and talk a bit about that? Sure.
Hello. Well, what the question is, how how do we feel like an artist in Shanghai or Beijing, right? It's
Yeah,
like
a bit about
the
what
general,
it's like. Yeah.
Right. I think Shanghai is a pretty neutral city. It doesn't have a lot of inclination, like they like. I don't know. Like personally, I feel some of the city that they like music that are more aggressive, or there are some city that they like music that's more chilled. But in Shanghai, it's like a mix, partly because the music scene is pretty. It's like a desert, you know. So anything comes out, everyone's like, "Oh, cool, you know, nice play, nice stuff," you know. And gradually it makes into a kind of a unique status, a state. Like every kind of music can come out, and there will be people like it. But it's based on lacking of knowledge to the whole database. But it's also cool, you know, because it's quite. Quite raw, you know, like primitive, you know. So it's and also it's like at the same time it will get information, it will get the newest data flow in, you know. So a primitive place, but it will get the most advanced data in. So the place have sort of a cyberpunk state, you know what I mean? It's like it's a mix. So as artists there, you're free because there are no pressure at all, no peer pressure, no pressure from the label or the music industry, because the music industry is far away from electronic music in China. So it's basically it's kind of it's freedom. I don't know, I just feel like I can create whatever kind of music I create, and I can still find place to play music. And yeah.
Do you have anything to add, or what have your own experiences been like?
In the Chinese, and Han will help me to
translate.
我因为自己身在上海，所以非常喜欢上海这个城市。对我来说，我觉得上海是一个我所知道的包容性最强的一个城市。从历史上来说，在经历过这个它的殖民时期之后，它的一个在中国的特殊地位，让它非常的，就是本身就有非常多的这个机会，然后一直都是非常这个开放跟多元。那现在整个上海的音乐场景，我觉得也是相当的活跃，有它自己的就是非常特点的部分。
Yeah, so she was saying that because she's born in Shanghai, and so she kind of, you know, have this more visceral feel of the city, like native, you know. And also she said because Shanghai was colonized before, so it's at the very beginning when the city start to grow as a city, it already have the diversity. So it's always like that. And right now there's several nice venues too to support musicians. So it's diversified and just feel good, you know, like, yeah, pretty good.
And what about you two?
我之前的话就是在北京住了差不多1年多，然后后来搬到上海之后，我就觉得，上海电子音乐的话，就感觉大家是一个很开放的一个接受，就是你能感觉到，在上海的人，他们想知道更多的东西就更开放。然后北京的话，我觉得可能，如果我总觉得北京这个城市可能玩乐队。就在那边气氛比较起，电子音乐的话，我觉得上海可能更好，包容性更强，我是这样觉得。
So Hyph11e Tess, she used to stay in Beijing for a year, and then she moved to Shanghai, and she basically think that Shanghai is more open-minded, and it's more suitable for electronic music. And at the same time, Beijing, they have a really solid rock and roll scene, so it's more for the like band, like rock music. But I think Jason Ho will have a different opinion because, well, we have, you know, I mean, it's almost like a personal preference like for cities. So yeah, but basically, Tess was like, Shanghai is more electronic, Beijing is more rock and roll.
Yeah, Beijing is definitely, well, it's a massive city and it's very fast-paced. Like, people generally have very busy lifestyles. And also, it's very complicated. It has multiple layers, and every individual can have their specific experience in Beijing, because I think whatever culture or music you like, if you stay there long enough, you'll find your group. And if you're an outsider, it's very hard actually to know. If you're into electronic music, if you just go to the club, sometimes you don't actually feel the local culture. But you have to know the local label and the local producer. Sometimes they don't perform in the popular clubs. They'll have some private events, and if you know the people, then you can really feel the underground sound. But if you don't know, you'll just read these magazines and read all the suggested events on the paper, then you'll probably have a very, I guess, homogenized experience like every other foreigner. So in Beijing, I highly suggest if you ever go there, and you just make some friends and do more research. And the reason that Hyph mentioned the rock scene is like it's much more appreciated. I guess Beijing is more traditional in a way, and in Beijing you can explore lots of the traditional arts of China, like all the opera, the traditional music, religious music, and even classical music is like been thriving in Beijing for many years. Rock music is more considered as a classic modern music in Beijing, and we have like lots of bands in a very wide spectrum. Like we even have like the heaviest metal you can imagine in Beijing. During the year 2004 or 2005, I was playing in a progressive metal band, and I saw all this like really heavy stuff like grindcore or technical death that you cannot imagine it can happen in Beijing. So there's I guess people in Beijing are I guess their personalities are generally a bit more aggressive, maybe more edgy, and in Shanghai is like people are more open and more chill, and also like Shanghai has this history of jazz music that has influenced Shanghai since 1920s, and so the music scene is definitely very different between like the two cities. Yeah.
On that note, could you maybe tell us a bit about how your work is received in China? I read Howie Lee, the Do Hits founder, says that his audience in China is pretty much entirely Western. So I wonder about your experiences with that, not just in Beijing and Shanghai, of course, but when you play in China, how is your music received?
Okay, and I'm curious, just when did Howie said that his audience is mostly Western? Is it recent or?
I don't remember actually. Sorry
yeah,
about that.
I think actually the recent 2 years that has been changed completely, because I agree if in around 2012 or 10 or at the beginning of the scene of electronic music, I guess it is very true that even like around 2015, just at the beginning of our label, our parties will consist about 90% foreigners and only 10% Chinese. And just in a year and a half, because since we're starting to release our own music, and we help other Chinese producers to release music on Do Hits, that's the purpose. Because we feel like we cannot just import all the foreign music, and we have to do something local, and that's the only way we can stir the curiosity of the local people to join the scene. Then that way we can keep growing more more healthily. That's the only way. And the scene definitely changed after we starting to release all these compilations, and we're starting to incorporate all the Chinese, like from traditional music to all the the patriotic songs, like all the people said it's propaganda music, and it's all very well known in China, and you don't hear this sound. You hear it everywhere else, but not in a club. So we're kind of starting to incorporate all the element into the club music and make it more interesting. And so in that way, we attract a lot of the local people. And in a year and a half, our audience completely changed. It's about 90% local, like young people, and 10% Westerner. It is, yeah, so it's a drastic change, yeah.
Have you also witnessed a similar change?
Well, yeah. I mean, our favorite place favorite club in Shanghai used to be called Shelter, and it was changed to Awe. It changed to another location, like probably almost a year ago. And before, I would say like maybe 2 years ago, the situation the same as what Jason described. Like when they're doing do-hits party, like maybe 2 years ago, 4 years ago, most of the audience are foreigners, expats or students, But right now it's like, I would say 80% of them are Chinese local people, which I think is, I actually have a mixed feeling about it, because I always think that the diversity of audience is important. Either way, either poll is not that good, Like if it, like 100% are local people, then this place will become, I don't know, the cult. It could generate some kind of a, you know what I mean, like a extreme kind of culture that based on the local culture, and sometimes it will lose a fun part. It will get too, I don't know how to say. But luckily, it's still like a mix now, but it's just more local people are there. And it's interesting to talk about local people, the concept of local people in a city like Shanghai. Because I guess the same here, because, well, how many people, you're meeting with a lot of different people every day. And I would say like the people that around me, that my friend, I would say 70% of them are not from Shanghai. So are they local people, or So I don't really have this thing, because I always feel detached to a place. So when I see a venue that's kind of detached from local culture, it's kind of cool, So I don't know if that answered the question or what, but in general, it's like we have this mixed feeling in Shanghai. Like in Beijing, like the local thing is really strong, and Jason and his guys say no, they want to, they want to push it, and it's good, it's cool. But in Shanghai, it's kind of hard to push it because it doesn't exist. Like from the beginning, it's already like a mix.
Well, Hyph11e, I guess. Oh, sorry, you're gonna add something.
因为今天我觉得这个主题不是说在比较上海跟北京，那我是觉得除了这两个城市，包括像成都、深圳或者杭州一样，就是现在我觉得非常大的一个变化是现在的我们是在建立自己的真正的一个新的音乐，因为最早就是可能我跟韩寒对国内的之前，可能因为我们都是有做过很多摇滚乐队，所以对摇滚乐或者说实验音乐 的场景更加熟悉一些。那更早的时候，因为毕竟就是可能也不像现在的讯息那么开放，那更多可能是会有受到可能西方的影响，或者是国外更多是受到国外乐队的影响。那我觉得这个是跟现在的最大的差别，就是现在我觉得中国的年轻人在做自己的音乐，包括比如说像Jason Hou，因为他也用到了中国元素，但是我觉得这个就是他会有自己真正新鲜的东西在里面。对。
Basically she said, well, today is not, there's no point compared cities, right? And she said, what's good is that, like right now, the younger generation producers, they're doing what they want. They're not pushed by the pressure from media or to some extent, everyone will be pushed will be influenced. But right now, they're more independent. Like before, he was just saying that they're more personal. They're doing things that they like in their own way. Like Jason, he's mixing traditional elements into electronic music. But as you know, there are a lot of cliche kind of electronic music that makes, that makes Oriental elements in, and it sounds really bad, right? But Jason's doing it in his way, and also he knows about electronic music, so it's not, basically just like that, like younger generation, they're doing it in their own way.
我可以再说2句吗？因为我们做乐队的时候，其实有非常很早就是在比如说美国或者德国，来过柏林好几次演出。原来其实在被采访或者在宣传的时候，总是会被贴上这个中国或者亚洲乐队的标签。那当然就是我们其实并不排斥这个本身身份的东西，但是我真的就是说觉得现在有非常多好的中国音乐值得被大家去认识跟听。那我们本身也非常高兴能够来到这个 CTM 有这个机会。希望大家能够后面来看我们的演出。
She also want to add something. That is, we have been played in different countries several times, but there's a lot of times that the context is wrong. Like the people come to a show and they want to see dumplings flowing, on your background visual, and they want to see you wear like I don't know, you're riding on the horse in an ancient Chinese way and playing DJ. It's crazy. But what she was saying is that this time, we're playing our music. We are from China, but it's our music, and just not treat us, just enjoy it. Don't think too much about all this Oriental shit. Just enjoy the music.
对于我来说的话，就是，中国电子音乐感觉形成差不多。对于我来说，我觉得上海电子音乐可能10年前或者12年才刚刚开始。你像之前互联网也没有那么发达，我们也没有什么机会去听到电子音乐或者什么。北京的话，我不确定是从什么时候开始就是第一批做电子音乐，但是上海的话，可能12年前或者10年前，你像盖子就是 Subco 老板，还有北京达达、上海达达老板 Michael， 他们最早开始就在上海找一个小地方就开始做活动，这是最早开始他们来带起来电子音乐，然后到后来有了 Shelter 之后，人人都喜欢去 Shelter， 然后听一些新的音乐。我觉得从那会儿开始，然后中国才接触到电子音乐，然后才听到更多电子音乐，然后直到现在，差不多16年，我觉得16年整个一年是改变特别大的一年，就是越来越多的中国本地的 promoter， 中国本地的 producer 中国本地的 DJ 越来越多，然后直到现在，你像 gGOOOOOSE，我们可以办自己的 party 发布自己的合集或者音乐，我觉得这就是一个非常非常大的改变，对。但是也确实是我们从，你像最早一批像盖子他们真的给我们太多太多的影响，包括 Shelter 这个地方，为什么大家都称 Shelter 是一个传奇的地方？就是对于我来说，我从15年搬到上海之后 ，Shelter 真的给我影响非常非常大。
So Tess want to talk more about the supportive forces, supportive power, and key person that help her to help her grow in music, and also the whole scene. So she mentioned that Gaz from Shelter and Michael from Dada. That I guess her point is that they kind of introduce electronics to major cities in China like 10 years ago. So it took quite a long time for people to grow. So right now maybe it's a time that finally there are real electronic producers, because they're more mature now. They know that they're serious musicians, they're not copycat or anything like that,
Yeah, I guess it seems like the kind of club scene in China has exploded in the past couple of years. Like you mentioned with Genome and Subcult and all that. Could you maybe talk a bit about how you've kind of been a part of Genome since it started out, right? How you've witnessed parties changing all over China and witnessed scenes growing and new clubs starting in Chengdu and whatever. Could you talk a bit about that?
Party 就是GNOME 差不多从去年8月份这个 label 开始，然后我们就最开始，然后我们就发了第一张 compilation， 发完之后，后来我们就开始做 GNOME 的 party。从最开始，我觉得给我来说最大的一个变化就是最开始的时候来我们 party 的人，可能外国人和中国人一半一半，然后到现在就是来 GNOME party 的人80%都是中国的就是中国人，而且都是非常年轻的小孩子，差不多95后或者就非常年轻，然后你能感到他们对新的东西非常感兴趣，他们想知道更多的东西，就是那种开放和那种包容程度，他们想知道更多。我觉得这是一个特别好的事情，对。
So what she witnessed is that Genome started not long ago, just probably 1.5 years ago, and since it started, it's like, well, at the beginning, it's like foreigners and Chinese people half, but right now it's like almost 80% of the people that are Chinese, and they're mostly born after the year 95. So she's kind of surprised that they're and happy that they're so open-minded and they accept the new stuff and they support this new kind of a underground party.
我再补充一点，然后不好意思啊，刚才说的就是上海的一个 party 的状况，然后再举一个例子，就是外地，我觉得最好的一个反应就是在杭州。比如说 GNOME 刚开始在杭州做 party 的时候，可能来的人很少，就30-40个人，然后到现在之后就是每一次 party 人就越来越多，你能感受到你在吸引很多的年轻人过来去了解这些东西。我觉得包括刚才33也提到，就是中国现在不仅上海和北京是电子音乐比较好，就是其他很多城市，像太多城市了，像我觉得现在 China Tour 你都可以走好多地方，上海、北京、深圳、成都、重庆、杭州、苏州，还有什么西安，就太多地方，每个地方都有自己的 local 这样的电子音乐的一个小的地方。我觉得 就整个的中国的电子音乐都现在就是一个非常就是在快速发展，然后想知道更多的那种状况。对。
She also want to add that it's not only happen in Shanghai, especially there's one city called Hangzhou that's an hour by train from Shanghai. It used to be a really famous place of interest in China, but now it got like several really nice venues, and so the scene slowly grows there. And not only Hangzhou, there's at least like 7 other cities that if you're an electronic musician, you can tour, and you can expect, well, there won't be like a lot of people, but you can expect the reasonable people in the club. So that means a scene, there's already a scene there, like nationwide. So she thinks that's great.
Hyph, or did you have anything to add? So you mentioned it was kind of tough to be exposed to electronic music, particularly before Dada and Shelter and opened. I guess I just wanted to ask the rest of you also if access and exposure was really something difficult to grapple with, I suppose, like culturally, and then also with internet censorship and stuff like that. Was it difficult, and if so, how did you deal with that?
I would say that if it is that difficult, then we won't be able to make music like what we are making now, right? Because we're using all the, maybe it's not the most advanced software or hardware, but we're using things that everyone's using globally now. So if we don't have channels to access, say, the manual or the tutorial video on YouTube, then how can we use it? Because most of the manual come with a machine, it's English or German or something, right? So I think that explains that the censorship and everything's not like that. And also, I think it's like in every country or anywhere, people have the way to deal with the control that toward them, right? They can sort of soften them and find another way to go around it, right? So I think we're good at it, and especially the younger generation, and the censorship is still there. When we just released our album on D-Force, and when we're submitting all the material, like the songs and the title and descriptions, we have to go through kind of a cultural bureau, and they will go through it, and they will tell us, okay, this is fine, this is not fine, but they're not like FBI, They're not going to call you and say, hey, you're banned forever. No, they're going to tell the record label something, maybe have some problem here, so maybe you guys can change. So I would say it's kind of it's a special way of communication. It's not like, I don't know, it's kind of complicated, because from pure Western perspective, this is wrong, right? Because we like freedom, democracy, and stuff. But I think that everywhere the same. It's just politics and you, right? So either find a way to deal with it or fight with it. Then there's no. Yeah, I don't think there's a black and white side that you gotta choose. So yeah, basically is that we can get all the information that we like, and we can publish in a way that, well, if you want to go pure underground, then there's almost no restriction. But you want more people to listen to it, then you got to obey some kind of rules. And that's the same at SoundCloud and YouTube, right, and everything. So I would say it's the same.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think the beauty of electronic music or music in general, it transcends language. And the censorship, a lot of time deal with verbal messages. And well, that's why I read this article. I think it's a bit ridiculous and from the States saying that China banned hip-hop culture and its anti-blackness is completely untrue, because what they banned is not the hip-hop culture, but a very specific verbal message is carried in the lyrics. It's about drug use and disrespect women and all that. And that's what the states don't want the general public, especially young people, to see. And I think that that's just a very specific aspect of music, or really it's not music, it's just words or ideas that use vehicle as that use music as a vehicle to carry the message, to kind of display this masculine power. But generally, what the kind of music a lot of people make, it doesn't have any like verbal communication. Is more like communicate with sound and vibration and energy. I think that's the beauty of electronic music, because we can use everything that can be recorded and we can generate any sound that we can imagine, and that's the real beauty of it. And the censorship does not work for music with like the pure intention like that. And so I think we can transcend the censorship in that way, yeah. And it's really not, well, people think internet is not functional in China. Maybe just take a bit of extra work if you learn how to use a VPN. It's really not a big deal for us. Yeah. And actually, the government encourages people not to use VPN, but we have so many like international students. We have so many people that travel around the world. I mean, if our government really want to control like information or just control people's perception about the world, then why like 100 million people that are to travel around the world and come back, and all the students are encouraged to come back to their home country, and they're given like funds to start like a music tech company, or there are lots of support actually from the government. So you have to look at both sides. Yeah, you can't just look at censorship and saying censorship is bad. It has historical reason, it has military reason, it has like protectionism. There's lots of other facts you have to consider. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, or no? It's fine. So then, kind of on the note of state support and funding, well, I guess you already mentioned before that you feel like you have a lot of freedom in Shanghai to kind of make the music that you're interested in. So when it comes to funding and, I don't know, surviving as an artist, I don't know how many opportunities there are for funding, or if it's that's really a viable thing over there. And how much freedom you have to pursue that?
There's almost zero funding. we used to have I used to have a daily job, and she still work daily, and I think we all, they also produce music for the others, I think. So they're I think still it's the same. Like as a musician, the life, you got to find some way to have the luxury to dive into what you like every day, right? So you got to sacrifice something, like either work or do something that you don't want to do. But I think it's the same everywhere, right? Well, except you have a billionaire father, then you can make music every day, but yeah, but the funding from the cultural bureau or the government is kind of there are not many that kind of funding. There are some.
There is, if you're in the technology industry, let's say music tech, and there's definitely funding for that. And for musicians, it's not directly, but lots of the music festivals are supported by the government, and some labels that I know that I work with, that I remixed this Beijing opera, they are funded also by the government and partially funded. so we're kind of indirectly benefited from the policies because our government wants to encourage the cultural confidence. And I mean, right now, maybe mostly at this moment they want to push the traditional arts, but I think as time goes by and more young people start to work in the government, they're starting to appreciate the contemporary music, because most people in the position of power are in their late 50s or early 60s. They actually have lived through like very strict cultural regulations, and it's almost ridiculous that, you know, the Cultural Revolution, we have banned all music basically for 10 years. That basically destroyed like all culture, but we still managed to recover from that. And so I'm a bit positive about the future, but I also agree there are some things that are unreasonable regarding to censorship. But again, that's the struggle we all have to face. Yeah, it happens everywhere, and yeah.
I mean, do you think the support you're finding, whether, like as you just said that there's no kind of arts funding, but I read that like, say, social media companies like Douban or whatever are like sponsoring festivals from like wetware and so on. But something you know, how I heard an anecdote from somebody that for something like the first edition of wetware, there's a lot of money going into it, and there's like a lot of resources in that respect from these private actors, but then the actual reception maybe kind of fell flat, and there weren't actually so many people who actually turned up to hear the music. What are your experiences with this kind of gap?
I was part of the wetware last year, and I kind of curated this panel that with Mark Verbals, Alessandro Cortini, and who else? Mark Reeder, and also Saeed from Electron. You know Electron, the Sweden. So the thing is that we know at the very beginning that we want to bring nice, good quality stuff to the audience, despite of the number of the audience that will receive the information. Because I think someone got to do it. You know, someone got to start it. And I know that in China, in Beijing, Shanghai, and everywhere, there are so many people that they have taste, and they not have taste, but they know what's going on now, and they know what's cool, what's good, what's forward-thinking, but they were also very realistic. So when you're super realistic, there's something that you cannot do. You won't even start it, right? But last year it's like it happened that we have some money and we have some support, and just things come together and we decide to do it. So yes, there are not many tickets sold, but I think the most important thing is first that everyone come to the festival, they were like, this is great, you know, this is mind-blowing. And the second is that all the artists that attended, like Stephen O'Malley, like you know, Andy Stott, like, you know, all this, I don't know, they all have this good feel about it. They were like, oh, okay, these guys know about what's going on now. I can feel that probably 70% of them, when they come to the festival, maybe they were thinking that, oh, okay, there's a rich guy want to throw some money into the festival in China, so we're going to just play a show. But I think they changed their mind. Many of them changed their mind after the festival. They were thinking that, okay, the curator, they really want to bring something good to here. So I think that's a good part. So, well, I would say in the short term, it's kind of like a business failure. But in the long term, I think there will be more people into it. And I think it's really good that someone did it for the first time. And also, I think we're going to do it again this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you treat it like a business, it probably won't work. It won't even make sense that you considered doing like festival like wetware, but the influence that it costs is priceless, I think. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Well, maybe on that note, I'll open up and see if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask.
Yeah. So, what is the size of the scene? I have no idea. And second is about media. Or you of course share information between yourself in the communities, in the scene itself. But are there any media or any other ways how you find out about what's happening across the whole country in the electronic, experimental, fringe music?
Well, the scene, first about the size of the scene is probably a lot smaller than you think. And because we basically like know everybody in the scene, and I'm just talking about the more underground electronic scene. But there is actually a much bigger scene that is hidden on the internet. And sometimes I'm surprised to find out there are groups that I have no idea that exist. Like there's a Launchpad community. They all play Launchpad and they make these tutorials and they play shows. But they're completely isolated from the other part of the electronic scene. I saw this guy, he showed me like 50 tickets of, he toured the whole country and played out in these clubs, but we never played there before. And we also have like people into the anime music, they're influenced by this Japanese music. And they produce lots of very interesting music, but they only release it online, and they have this like online community that shares this music, but they never play any shows. And I consider that's part of the underground sound as well. And there are some very local kind of music, it's kind of folk music combined with very aggressive beats, like almost like hardcore techno, and it cannot be categorized. And that's actually very popular in some rural area. And those people will never probably be seen by the Westerners, and if you have to dig to get those kind of like subcultures. So I can say maybe the scene is a lot bigger, but when you try to find it on the media and find the information, you'll find it surprisingly is very small. So yeah, that's the contradiction. Yeah.
I'm more interested in answering the second question.
Yeah.
Still, it's like, it's the same as everyone now in the world. Because how do you know the scene, what's the scene like in, I don't know, in Austin, Texas, or I don't know, any city? Well, you can, of course you can travel there, but you cannot travel to everyone. So you're going to use the internet. So the same as in China, the network is there. So it's easily that you know what's going to happen there. And what's more easy is that because there are not a lot of venues in China, so basically in every city there's one venue that's really focused. So it's even easier to know that, oh, how the scene like in that city, you know. So yeah, it's internet and just communication, I guess. You know.
Maybe maybe I can add another question there. I'm always very interested in the places, you know, where the music is really performed and where you meet and exchange and all of that. So you said there is a growing number of interesting venues or venues that support your kind of music. Are these places that are really only doing that? Or is that places that are actually more usually present some other kind of music, but they also support you? Or who's the owners? Are they part of your scene, or they're just like sympathetic to it? You know, how does that work? What places is that?
Well, I start in Shanghai. The place used to be called Shelter, and now it's called All, A-L-L. And there's another place called Dada, and both of the main guy, well, the main guy for All and Shelter is called Gaz, Gareth Willems, and for Dada is Michael Olsen. So they do all kind of music, but All gradually they're mostly focusing more on more forward-thinking stuff. And experimental stuff, and they like dance music, but it's a really open-minded place. So I don't know if that answers your question. They do all kind of shows, and they also support, and they're in the scene. So I think there are things in Shanghai that limited their ability to push it forward, because you still have to earn a lot of money. There are economic pressures, but I think they're doing really good, and they're trying their best to support the weird musicians. And in Beijing, I think Jason knows more about it.
Well, in Beijing. I think in Beijing the club culture is not as prominent as in Shanghai. So the scene actually reaches beyond the club scene. And actually, the clubbing is not really people don't really have this habit in China, but especially in Beijing, because it is the capital and it has the tradition, and people prefer drinking tea in a tea house or listen to an opera and see a proper traditional art. That's the preference of most people. So actually, when the electronic music starting to come up in the scene, and it's not just, I think the club scene is actually smaller, but expand to other places like venues like Live House, will sometimes also host electronic music events. And also, the local producers, I guess, works more with the mainstream artist in Beijing, because the sound expanded outside of the club, infiltrated into the pop world and the other art exhibitions. So it's wider than it is in Shanghai. I guess it's just different. Yeah.
Thank you for being here and telling us your stuff. Super awesome. And I thought it was so funny that you said that Shanghai is a desert. It's so. I would be interested what you meant, like a desert culturally, or that's something. This is interesting to me. And then I wanted to know what you want. How do you wish to connect to us? Let's say. Or, you're here now and you're invited, so you're here, so we have a chance to talk and hang out and talk. How can we connect better with something? Do you have ideas sometimes, or do you feel isolated? I feel I have not so much access to you as I maybe wish or something. How could we do this? And then I was also, for instance, I work for a feminist collective, Female Pressure, and I would be interested to connect to you guys if you're interested, to exchange addresses and maybe collaborate on things in the future and stuff like this.
Thanks. Well, first, how we come here? Well, there got to be interesting, I don't know, weird people listen to weird music and they find interesting stuff, and they just want to ask them to come to play a show, and Yan is, he made this happen, and from what I know, a lot of people working at CTM, they're also that kind of people. They just dig because they like music. I think this is really cool. And also, the first question, why I call it Shanghai a desert? Well, culturally, there are a lot of art museum and stuff going on, and the life is it's like a kaleidoscope. If you want to have fun, you can really have fun in Shanghai. but it's the same everywhere in like big cities, right? What I mean is that especially in when you're talking about music, because the diversity is not that good. It's still like what Jason said. The scene is still small. We have like 2 venues support us, but still when you're playing like different kind of music, people were well, sometimes they're not even curious. Well, from my perspective, I think I'm always curious about stuff that I don't know. But sometimes, well, I think it's normal in this modern world that there's so many things, everyone's overwhelmed. But what I mean is that there should be more people that are curious about stuff in a city with 20 million people, right? So, and what's the other question? Sorry, I cannot remember.
Just what do you want, how can we connect better, or how can we connect? Do you have any expectations, let's say, at being here, or what do you want us, what do you wish? Stuff like that. Your dreams. Tell me your dreams.
Well, you can give me your email address, and we can communicate easily later.
Just
Great.
I'll send you an email right now.
I'm pretty surprised receiving this message on SoundCloud. That's the only social media I have, and I'm very surprised that I'm actually here, and I got to, because like I read all about Berkheim and all about CTM before. And it's like a dream coming true, and for me. So I think it's actually very easy if the Western people are starting to, if you like to get in contact with Chinese music scene. It's really simple. We're all on the internet, and there are actually foreigners writing articles about us, about the label. If you search, you don't have to. It's really not that hard to actually find us. And our music is all online. You can listen to it, and you can kind of, if you know our label, you can find our page and find all these wonderful artists. There are many artists I think is worth being seen in the West. We definitely feel isolated for many years. I believe in this for a long time. I think we are very persistent. I've been producing for maybe 15 or even more, maybe for Han. I think around that, we've been working for all this time, believing that in the future or someday, and the world will find us. And I think if you're just curious, and it's easy to find us, and we're very friendly people, and we like to connect with the world. Yeah, and there are many others like us in China. If you're willing to establish the connection, and we'll be more than happy to help. Yeah.
But you're saying SoundCloud. SoundCloud is the place to go?
Not for everybody, but just personally, because I only use SoundCloud because I think I make music, it's easier just to communicate with people on SoundCloud because they hear the music and they can message me, right? For Facebook, I don't think, personally, I don't think it works for me because there's too much distraction. Like, as a musician, so I only kept the SoundCloud. And the CTM found me because of it's pretty surprising. So I'm very grateful, and also I think like the German people and the people from CTM are very eager to find out like what's happening in China. Yeah.
But you said that you felt isolated for many years.
Yeah,
you just said that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is true, but it has been changing in the recent 2 years. There's been a drastic change.
Why do you think is that? Why do you think is that?
Why? Well, definitely it has a lot to do with China's economic growth and its influence on the global stage. That's foremost the most important reason, I think. And now people are curious. Like, this country has been through development. It has been developing so fast, and what's going on there. And there's also lots of, I guess, bias about China, contradictions about China, and it just naturally stirs people's curiosity. I think that's why, and also because of the internet. Yeah.
I want to add something. I think isolation is an interesting word because for the people who are isolated and for the people that surround it, they're both isolated. You know what I mean? So it's like what you said. You don't know what's happening in China right now, but we know what's happening in the Western world. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing that who are isolated, right? But yeah, I think that also happens all the time because there are boundaries of countries, of culture.
Yeah, for instance, Russia I'm just working with Russian artists a lot, and it's a similar situation. That's why I was also maybe interested. Yeah. How do you perceive the connection between the West and China, or like do you? Yeah, I'm just curious to hear.
Sorry, can you say the question again?
No, I agree with you that the who is isolated, of course, but it is about communication, and sometimes I feel I right now work with a Russian project, and I've had similar situation that I felt, people feel isolated or not heard, although they're doing stuff, and yeah, I was just wondering if it's the same for you. And also there is a language barrier a little bit. So of course you guys have to write in English somehow that we can search you. I cannot find you otherwise. Or same for Russians, for instance. So this was something I thought was interesting. You have to agree on English or something.
Well, yeah, because it's a dominating power there for like centuries, so it's not us that facing the problems. Everyone's facing the problem, right? Even maybe people in the States and people living in the UK, they also have the problem because they're speaking different kind of sort of language. So I think it's a global thing. It's not, and also from what I know, the younger generation of China, their English are good. So I don't see there's a huge barrier. Well, maybe they cannot like communicate like the native speaking people, but they can, yeah. So I don't know. I partly agree what you said, but also partly disagree.
Well, do you have anything else to add, or? Well, if not, I just want to say thank you to. Oh wait, there's one more question. Do we have time for one more question? Yes, we have time.
Okay. I'm interested because party culture and club culture always also mean chaos and somehow turmoil. What do you think when it's more growing in China? And you mentioned that hip-hop culture, there was something meant that was not liked by the state. Could it happen to the club culture and party culture that it also happened to this?
Well, I think it's all possible, and but it's just like sometimes like a cat and mouse game, and you can suppress the culture for sure, but if it's supported by people and also especially supported by people with good intention just to appreciate music and dance, then the control won't always work. But I think the club scene, well, it has a lot to do with drugs. If the censoring or the suppression happens, it will have to be for that reason, and it's maybe it's a global issue that we all have to face. So it's very complicated to say. Yeah.
Just interesting because also Dada, Dada Beijing or Dada Shanghai, Dada also can read somehow like a political term.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the second half.
Dada, this term, can also be read somehow political.
I mean, Dada has been...
the Dada movement in the 20s in Europe. You don't...
Sorry?
You don't know Dada?
The Dadaism, you're talking about the art movement, right?
Yeah, of course. It's the same name.
What? Sorry.
So,
What's the question?
In case of and the club is also called Dada. Is it meant somehow like a statement?
The club? No, I don't think it has. Do you mean does it have any political statement or?
If you go there, you will find out there's nothing connect to that art movement because it's just a bar. But the main promoter is very supportive. He doesn't want. I'm pretty sure that he knows about the movement, but it's just that he might not want to push it to that because it's kind of cliche. You open a club and call it. Well, sorry, personally, I think it's a cliche. Because you don't open a club and call it futurism or, so I'm pretty sure he's chilled. You know, he just want to open a bar and earn some money and support friends.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Dada is like the words that an infant would say, like Dada, or just like something. I think that's the reason why it's called. I never asked. Dada's owner is Michael, is from the States. He has been living in China for 15 years, so he's helped the growth of the local electronic scene. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Right. Well, then, on that note, I wanted to thank you all for being a part of this today, and then for Yan and CTM for putting this all together, for having us. Yeah, it's been really great having you here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.